Welcome to another episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. I am your host, Kelli Melissa Reinhart, and I'm excited about my guest for today. I think I'm excited all the time, but more specifically because you may or may not know my nonprofit, Make Mental Health Matter, formerly known as BCC Evolution. We have been doing a film festival since 2018. It was actually one of the very first events my nonprofit ever did. And it was because I had a friend at the time. Not at the time, she's still my friend, but she's an actress and she was in this film that was coming out at that time. She came to me and she's like, you should do a film festival, because I was trying to figure out what our nonprofit was going to do. I know that I wanted it to be really around suicide prevention, since that is how I lost my sister. And I just had no idea what the heck I was actually going to do with my nonprofit. And she came to me and said, you should do a film festival. And I was like, I have no idea how to do a film festival or what that even means. But I rolled with it and I was like, yeah, okay, let's figure this out. So we figured it out. The very first year, we had 4 films. We had 4 speakers. It was in this little tiny theater in downtown Denver, which we've actually kept with over the years. And then COVID happened. And that was actually a blessing in disguise for us, because we had to go virtual. That allowed us to open it up to the world. So the next few years after that, we started getting submissions. I'm like, what's the word? Submissions from all over the world. And we have since then been able to just expand this and open it. And the film festival is all centered around mental health and suicide awareness. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because my guest today is one of our filmmakers from last year. And I am just honored to be able to continue the conversation that we started at the film festival last summer. No, it was in September. We do them in September during National Suicide Awareness Month. Actually, we've kind of changed it up a little bit. But anyways, the history about the film festival doesn't really matter. What matters is that my guest today, we're going to have some more open conversations about the film, but also his personal story and his background. So without rambling even more, let me tell you a little bit about my guest for today. So Max, he was the lead writer of the short film Last Rung on the Ladder. He also is a survivor of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. He is using the film to talk about his experiences and to eventually use the performing arts to help end mental illness stigma. And he has been a screenwriter and mental health advocate who has the lead writer of that short film, and it has been playing in festivals across America. He has gone from being suicidal to an award-winning filmmaker in 2 years. So we're going to have that conversation. Max, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I know I gave a short little blip of you, but can you tell the audience a little bit more about yourself and your story?
Well, mental illness runs in my family. My aunt, Betty, was a pioneer in mental health advocacy. She wrote a series of essays on what it was like to be institutionalized in the late 1970s, early 80s. And it's kind of funny, she also introduced me to Stephen King. And unfortunately, the illness took her life. Suicide back in 97. And I wanted nothing to do with mental health advocacy because I was afraid that I would be following her footsteps too closely. But as I got older, I realized that I have a voice, and I realized that mental health advocacy is something I want to get into. And I volunteered for Not Me, Wisconsin. I was paid to tell my story about depression, OCD, anxiety for schools. And it wasn't until the last couple of years I decided that performing arts is where I want to merge my advocacy. I got a psych degree, almost got in college post-grad to be a drama therapist. And I put together smaller variety show-like events to help raise mental health and awareness, which it didn't have much success with. But it wasn't until I had this opportunity to make this film that it's my mental health advocacy and my creativity has just got into overdrive.
That's amazing. And I know you had reached out to me because it took us a really long time to figure out which ones we were actually going to put in. There was like a few that were like going back and forth and back and forth. And I told you, but personally, like Stephen King, usually I'm like, I'm not really sure about it. But I love the twist that that the film had. And then you gave me your story, and I was like, man, like you took the time to reach out, not really knowing what was going on, but then you were really honest and vulnerable with your story in general. And that was one of I was like, we got to put them into the film festival, just hearing your story and why it means so much to you. So I love that you were able to shift into this creative space with the film specifically too. And it was, so we'll get into the film in a minute, but as far as knowing that there was advocacy that you didn't necessarily want to do, but then you really embodied that and shared your story, I think that's just so powerful.
Yeah, and your film festival was the first time it screened on a big screen outside of Wisconsin, the state I'm from. And thankfully, a friend of mine from church donated her miles to get me out there. It's amazing. The film I started writing in 2021 after a trip to Bangor, Maine with my cousin Olivia. And I was telling Jim Tinker from Stephen King Tours that I was a writer, and he told me about the Dollar Baby program, which was Stephen King from 1980 to 2023 allowed independent filmmakers to adapt one of his short stories for $1. And I knew that I wanted to make it a story about suicide because this was going to be a tribute to my Aunt Betty. And it would have been the 25th anniversary of her death when I was writing it, when we were going to film it in 22. But the producer I had wasn't actually helping get it forward. My best friend at the time, who I was kind of in a toxic relationship with, just got a stroke and almost died. And I realized I was the age that my Aunt Betty was when she ended her life. And I got into a deep, deep depression in fall of 2022, so bad that I was really afraid I was going to go through with it. And I knew that I couldn't leave my parents as survivors because I was a survivor of suicide with my aunt. I had homicidal ideations that I might hurt them and then hurt myself. So I committed myself to a place that was like one floor of the Cuckoo's Nest with a big screen TV in the common area. It wasn't a very good place to be. But the cool thing is, after that, I prayed, I got therapy, I got off this medication that was doing more harm than good. And we got a producer who knew his stuff, and we started filming in 2023 in Land O'Lakes. And we were able to film the film. For those who aren't familiar with the story, it's from Night Shift Collection. It's about a brother and a sister who are very, very close as kids. The brother saves the sister's life, and how, due to circumstances and mental health and life, they get drifted apart. And on the day he becomes a Dr. Phil-like therapist, she unfortunately ends up in a very sad, darker place. And I don't want to spoil it away if it's good, you'd be able to see it at other film festivals. but it basically tells a story of if someone is hurting and reaching out for help, you never know when it's going to be too late. And it's just, it was seeing something you wrote on the big screen. There's nothing better than that. And being able to go to film festivals with Carla S. Bryant, my co-writer, Jeff Blankenship, the director, the cast, and it's amazing. And to be able to tell my story at each of these places. I just, God is good. I mean, my faith has been a strong part of my recovery. Sometimes the anxiety and depression kind of plays on that, but my depression no longer wins. I called him the carnival bark of despair. Is actually able to cast mental illness as a character, which a lot of people are saying was an ingenious thing. I don't want to toot my own horn, but
yeah, I loved I mean, just how separating, right? Like making it a person in the film. And of course, I don't want to spoil any of it either, but I thought that was really brilliant use of how you can portray the mental illness in a different fashion. And I love, for whatever reason, I love the very end. Not going to tell people how it ends, but that was like one of my favorite parts for some reason, was the like very, very end. And I also, it challenged my mindset. I think that was the biggest thing, because so I've watched a lot of films over time since we've been doing the film festival. On average, we get anywhere between 40 to 60 entries every single season. And so we're having to go through those. And I've gotten really good at, does it grab my attention? Is there a storyline? Does it make sense? Is it too graphic or not really enough, right? Like understanding the balance. One thing that we try to do, especially with our festival, is we're not trying to show the means or the way. Yours was just, it was like that little border, and that's where we like went back and forth of like, do we put it in, do we not put it in, depend, just how it like laid out. But then I mean, I also have the board, they all judge it, and it rave reviews, right? Like it clicked with everybody right away, and they understood what was going on. And I think that's why I know why we ended up putting it in, but then you reached out to me and you were like, hey, this is what it means to me. And I was like, wow, like that pulls me in even more. And then having you fly out, which I was so bummed that we didn't have a full audience. We're still trying to work that out. And actually this year we decided we're just going virtual. We're not going to do the space until we can get really good.
I mean, also it didn't help that it was one of the most beautiful sunny days you could have. I think if it was raining and gray, you might have had a packed house.
Yeah. Then that's what we like, as a board, we talked about. We're like, September in Colorado, it's either super nice or it's crappy. And people are either, I'm going to go inside, or they're like, it's some of the last days that we have and it's beautiful. And so they don't want to go inside. So yes, Colorado, unfortunately, is challenging when you talk about events in general. But we are going to go more of the online this year, and then maybe we'll bring back the in-person portion. But I think it's impactful whether we have you on site or not. We're going to get better at that, right? But we have some other cool things that we're going to add that really showcases our filmmakers, because I am just honored to be able to share people's works of art, right? Like there's so much blood, sweat, and tears that goes into creating a film. And I'd love to talk about that process a little bit. We just have to go to our quick first sponsored break. But once we get back from that, then maybe we can dive in a little bit, whatever you want to share as related to the process. So, all right, we'll be right back after this quick sponsored break.
1,917 people die daily from suicide globally.
I lost my middle sister, Kelli, to a completed suicide on February 20th, 2017.
How does Make Mental Health Matter save lives?
Number 1. Awareness.
My story, however, it isn't unique. I am a domestic violence survivor and a recovering addict. For 14 years, I was in active addiction, and because of Kelli and the work that she does and the opportunity to have my voice heard, I was able to stay clean and sober and have hit a year. I'm still here, and if it wasn't for Kelli answering my call the day that I thought I was going to take my life.
Number 2. Conversation.
I'm curious, and I know that I've heard a lot in the BIPOC community. It is very hush-hush. It's like one of those things that you don't talk about. Like, you literally feel like it's not a conversation you can have. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
First, shout out to Kelli, because I'm glad that she asked the question. I researched you before I went on your show, and I saw how real and authentic you were. And I just appreciate the question, because it is different, and we have to have tough, courageous conversations. So yes, I always say I'm a triple diversity threat. I'm a Black woman with multiple disabilities. Now, I'm not really a threat, but to other people, I may be, because people fear the unknown and what they're uncomfortable with.
Number 3. Education.
Kelli's passionate commitment to mental health awareness is a beautiful thing. It's clear in her social media posts, it's clear in the resources that she puts together, in the activities that she provides, her collaboration with organizations, and the consistent way that she continues to deliver a message, encouraging people to understand that they can share openly and to break the stigma around mental health. Kelli's topics cover children and adults, talk about things that we can do as a community, things that we can do individually, and her website is packed with information and resources and all kinds of contacts that you can use to reach out, whether you're dealing with something yourself or you're looking to help somebody else who is struggling. I encourage you to check it out.
And like that, we're back. If you happen to be joining the Make Mental Health Matter show, thank you so much for watching or listening. Make sure you go back to the beginning of this, but my guest, Max, and I, we are talking about his journey through his own mental health challenges, but also leading into this place of mental health advocacy, and now a filmmaker, and moving into potentially having his own film festival, which we'll talk about in a little bit too. But before we went to the break, I had mentioned that there is a lot that goes into producing films, in writing, all of the things. I'm not even gonna pretend like I know what the process is, but I'm curious, would you be able to just kind of explain a little bit about your process, and knowing that you are able to really take advantage of recreating one of Stephen King's?
It's making a film is the team you have. My co-writer, I had a problem writing for the sister. It didn't sound real. So I got Carlos Bryant on board, and she helped make it screen worthy. Director Jeff Blankenship, who I met years before doing a 40-hour film festival, where a team has 40 hours to write, direct, edit, score, act a film, 5 to 7 minutes. And he is just an awesome director, and he is great with the actors. He has a great eye, a great mind. And one thing I learned is sometimes the director has an idea that would make the written word even better. And there's a twist in the film that was different from Stephen King's short story that I fought against, but Jeff was right. And I think the film is 100% better because of that. Kurt Krause, our producer, who's also working on a new film called Amphibious, which you could look and check that out. The cast: Brian Bells, Kayla Kelly, Seth Hale, the kids, Taylor Love and Ruby Madley and the communities of Land O'Lakes and in Oshkosh where we filmed. It's just, I'm working on writing a memoir of my struggles with mental health and the making of the film as well. And it's just, it's hard to describe because it's like magic and it's hard to put it into words, but I am so blessed to have had this team, and I'm glad that we were able to go to film festivals. I guess Kelli won Best Actress in a film festival in Milwaukee. We went up to Green Bay, Stevens Point. We're going to be in another film festival, the big one in Green Bay, in the first weekend in March. And I haven't heard from King himself. I don't know what he thought about it, but his lawyers okayed the film to be screened at Las Vegas at the King Con. And so being able to go there with Jeff was awesome, and meeting all these other creators and as well telling my story. Because, I mean, I want people to know that when you're in the lowest point, where you are feeling suicidal, that things can get better. And I also believe that there is a link between creativity and mental illness. I mean, a lot of the best comedians, actors, writers, etc., have their own struggles with mental health, and they overcome that and was able to transfer that energy into creativity. And one of my goals with Mental Health Warrior Pack is to eventually start a club for teens who've been touched with mental illness who have a knack for creativity, so they can have their craft nurtured to make showcases for their peer group. Possibly have like master classes with actors like Ryan Reynolds, Emma Stone, people who have been open about their own struggles with mental illness. And that is the awesome thing, that actors and celebrities are using their status to talk about their pain and their experience to help others. And I think it's a wonderful time to be a mental health advocate. But on the other flip side, we know more about mental illness, but the epidemic of loneliness, suddenly added after the pandemic with social media, that rates of suicide, even though we know more about depression, we know more about suicidalation, they're still pretty high, unfortunately. But I truly believe if you can target the teens, the youth, and give them hope, I believe you can end stigma and lower the rates of suicide.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the rates are still increasing year over year, right? But I think that what you just said is important, is that we are understanding it better. So therefore we can really start to help educate more people, right? Like whether that is through film, or that is through the classes like that we offer through my nonprofit, or it's the support groups, or it's just being a mental health advocate and expressing and telling your story. That's a lot of like everything that I'm trying to accomplish too, is the more we can talk about it, the more that we can show these different types of ways that can help people, again, whether it's through film, or it's through arts, or it's through music, or it's through any creative process, but then also that communication piece. I think it's just so important. And I think it's great that we have advocates like you that are willing to talk about your story, because not everybody is at that place that they feel comfortable to talk about it. And I do love that there are many, many celebrities that are really coming out and speaking their truth, because it's scary. Like just knowing the possible backlash that you can get, especially when you're somebody that's in the media or in the news or in the spotlight all the time. It can be challenging. It can be hard. But I think that the collective and what we're understanding is we're all human, right? Like we all go through these experiences and we all have a different experience. No one of us is going to be exactly the same. And that's why I love being able to shift that into the creativity of film, and why it's been so cool to have some really amazing filmmakers like you and having your story too.
I would like to talk about I'm a fellow film festival director, and being able to we had our first film festival in last May at Flicks Brew House, and we only had about like 65 people, but for a first year festival, I think that was pretty good. But we had filmmakers from Iowa, from Chicago, and all the way from Toronto and Orange County, California, come to a festival I made. And that's the thing with my anxiety, my OCD. It's very hard to communicate with people. It's very hard to email people because I doubt everything I say. I am afraid that I will like make them feel awkward, or that they will hate me, or that it will fall and blow up in my face. But the thing is, I'm not letting that stop me. I'm still emailing. I'm still communicating. I'm still trying to put this together. And we are still planning on having our second film festival the first Saturday in May. We moved it up a little bit because middle May you have graduation parties. And UW is a big university town. So, but we've been screening, had about, I want to say like 55, 60 films so far, and I have a great committee with filmmakers, other mental health advocates, Brian Bells and Kurt Kraus are on, as well as some really great people. But it's kind of like the depression doesn't want us to succeed. The depression and the anxiety thinks it's protecting us. It thinks it's protecting us from embarrassment, from pain. The problem is the flip side of that. It also prevents us from knowing joy. It prevents us from doing the things we need to do. And I'm sick and tired of letting that voice that warns me not to do things taking control. But you have good days and you have bad days. I mean, I got like major depression back, like I want to say in November, after coming back from film festival in Santa Monica. And I kind of view my current battle as the Battle of the Bulge. It is World War II. It's like the last battle before victory. And I still believe that I can put those clubs together. I believe that Mental Health Warrior will succeed. And I just have to do the work. And unfortunately, it takes twice as hard to do things as it would someone who doesn't have this. But the goal at the end of the tunnel is twice as sweet.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's great. 65 people in the first year, right? That's amazing. I remember, our first year we had like 45, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Yeah, that's huge.
And this year we're going to use Eventive, so it'll be virtual as well. So that people will be able to access it from Colorado. People will be able to access it from all over America, possibly even the world, because we have international films as well. So I'm like really excited about this year's festival, and I'm still writing. When it comes to my writing style, I'm kind of like an absent-minded professor who has like 12 half-made inventions. I have like a dozen half-written works. I need the discipline, but yeah, I'm hoping to, like I said, write in the memoir about the making of this film and my mental health crisis, as well as writing a few more scripts. And I would still like to write this as a feture and ask King's Lawyers how much it might cost to adapt it as a feature.
That is amazing. We're going to go to our last quick sponsor break, but once we come back, we'll chat a little bit more about what the future looks like. So we'll be right back after this.
Have you ever felt completely alone?
Like your life doesn't matter.
One person dies due to suicide every 40 seconds.
You are not alone. Call the National Suicide Lifeline at 988.
Hope and recovery is possible.
1 in 8 people globally live with a mental disorder.
That's why empowering minds saves lives.
We need your help.
With only $19 a month, you help us save lives through mental health and suicide prevention education.
Scan the QR code or go to makementalhealthmatter.org to sign up as a warrior for mental health today.
I'm Sinead from Bredar. I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa. Please join me in my Power Hour every Sunday, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on E360 TV. Mwah!
Hi, Laura Cross, your host for Mindful Mondays, every Monday at 1 p.m. Central Time, where you can embark on a transformative journey of self-care and ultimate happiness. Tune in to the Voyage to Vitality channel on the Achieve TV network. Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross. Be there, be mindful, and join us on E360 TV.
And like that, we're back again. If you happen to be just joining the Make Mental Health Matter show, make sure you go back to the first half because we've had such a great conversation. And I know, Max, you started talking about your film festival and knowing that you're still going around to all the film festivals. I feel like our film festival is probably way different than anybody else's because I started it not knowing anything about film festivals in general. But can you tell the audience a little bit, like anybody that doesn't know what a film festival is, can you tell them a little bit more?
Yeah, it can be a one-day or multiple-day event where films are screened. Like mine had 21 shorts and a feature. I went to one in California that was like a 4-day event. And it's also an event where filmmakers come and they can mingle. Some have networking events. I talked to a casting agent out in Santa Monica in November. And some are just at a single location, some have multiple locations, and some are hybrid events like yours last year. And it's really cool. I mean, it's also, you meet other filmmakers, and if you make the film festival circuit, you see other filmmakers at multiple times. And it's really awesome. When you have a film, usually you have 2 years that you're able to send it to film festivals. And my film is a little different than others because of being a Stephen King dollar baby. I can't put it on the internet. I can't sell it. I can only screen it at film festivals or free events like the mental health events I did in Oshkosh and Land O'Lakes.
Yeah, that was one part of the. So when we first started and we opened it up to the world, right, using Film Freeway, I didn't realize about the screening process of like some people, they're very like, don't put this out there, right? So we have to make sure that we don't screen it in any other fashion other than getting permission from the filmmakers to be able to do the hybrid model. We didn't realize that up until we went hybrid, and some people are like, no, it can only be in person. So there's so many aspects of the being a film festival that you don't really think about up until you have those come up.
Yes, quite true.
Yeah, I love also that yours is all centered around mental health and suicide prevention also, because I often hear that there's not enough film festivals, but there's a ton of filmmakers.
Yes, I believe that there are only like 5 or 6 in America. I mean, there's 2 in California, yours, mine, and I think there's another one in Chicago. But there isn't many. And this is really cool. There are international ones. I submitted Last Rung in the Ladder to Cannes Diversity, and there's one in Germany about filmmakers using film to change the world in the Bavarian town where Murnau came from.
That's awesome. There's also one in Malaysia. If you don't know, we had a filmmaker 2 years ago that was from Malaysia, and they had just submitted it. There's like a giant mental health film festival that they do there. So
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, it is. I think it's on Film Freeway too. I don't know. So tell us a little bit more about, because you did also talk about how your anxiety and your OCD, and you're still doing the things, you're reaching out to people, you have your film festival, all these things that come into your mind as you're processing through trying to get out there and make these connections. So I want to honor that you had mentioned that. And then also knowing that those people that might be out there that are struggling with these similar things, are there any tools that have helped you other than filmmaking?
Well, I use the I go through the Super Better by Jane McGonigal. It's a book and online system where you view getting better as a game with like power-ups, allies, name your bad guys, and your superhero identity. Mine is Max the Mental Health Warrior, and that's where I got the idea of the bad guy, the Carnival Barker of Despair. And also, I mean, therapy and medication. I do ketamine like every 4 months, and that really helps with the overcoming physical depression. And I also have a thing that I called Schrodinger's response. You know, Schrodinger's cat. The cat is either dead or alive until you open the box. A response is either bad or good until you get it. You don't know what the response is, so just do it. Just ask. And it's just interacting with people is difficult because, especially not in person, you don't know what a line in the email means. You don't know what a text actually means. And it's very easy for your mind to go wild. And people like us, we feel just like normal people. It just multiplied by 10.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I mean, when we talk about anxiety and then you also add OCD on top, there's a lot that overlaps with those anyways. But I know that social anxiety can play a role of that. What I also, going back to thinking about the film, is you encompassed a lot of that, especially by creating the role of the actual mental health challenge, right? So that's what I thought was so cool. And then also backtracking just even a little bit more is you never know when somebody might be reaching out when they really truly need help. I love that you showcase that, and the unfortunate of maybe missing that moment, right? And I know, just reflecting on when my sister passed, is that I didn't see any of that coming up, and I didn't know that she was struggling, how she was, and I missed that. And so that's why, for me, I'm so passionate about educating people. And I love that we're able, especially through the film festival, able to show that up on screen, because some people identify visually more than they do sitting in a classroom taking a class. So I love that I'm able to add that extra layer, and that you were able to showcase that in your film. There's so many layers, and I'm gonna have to I watched it so many times because the board, we kept going over and over, and then you get different pieces. There's so many different layers of it. It's just brilliant. So
thank you.
Yeah. And you'll have to, if you're listening or watching this, again, you have to go to a film festival to see the film specifically. And again, not wanting to give away any of the surprises, but I would highly recommend any of the film festivals that Max and his team and the film is in. Make sure you go see that. So if go ahead.
Facebook, Last Rung on the Ladder has its own Facebook page where we update the film festivals and when it's screening. So your viewers could do that to find out if the film is going to be screening nearby them. Still submitting it to film festivals all over America.
Awesome. And let me put that up really quickly. So it's Last Rung
on the Ladder.
On the Ladder. Sorry. Yep. That's why I wanted to On the ladder. All right. I was like, why am I typing that wrong? Okay. So last rung, RUNG, on the ladder, LADDER, if you're listening, has its own Facebook page. So make sure you go check that out. And Max, any final words that you want to share? And then also tell the audience a little bit more about how they can find you and follow you and know all the things other than the Facebook that you just told me.
Okay. Just if you are feeling depressed, write about it. And everyone has that little kernel of creativity, whether you're a painter, a singer, etc. And you can't get rid of energy, but you can convert energy into something else. And you can turn anxiety into excitement. You can turn depression into empathy. And that's what I have to say. I'm on, and you can follow me on Instagram at, keep forgetting if it's Max the Mental Health Warrior, Mental Health Warrior Max. I think it's Max the Mental Health Warrior. And yeah, and so I haven't updated a lot of the videos and stuff like that because part of my anxiety is perfectionism, and the videos are never perfect enough. But I'm trying to be more on social media.
Awesome. And I'm gonna check while we're on here because I'm more than sure that I follow you. So I want to give it right to the audience. So because you Mental Health Warrior Max was the one that you told me.
Yep, and I can get a case from it, so that is right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Mental Health Warrior Max. And I'm just gonna double check it, but I'm pretty sure I do follow you. Yeah. Yes. So Instagram at Mental Health Warrior Max, MAX. You can check him out. And you also said on Facebook, Last Rung on the Ladder. They have their own Facebook page, so you can see where it's being screened. I highly recommend that you go see it wherever it is screened. If you like Stephen King, if you don't like Stephen King, I would still recommend. There's, again, so many layers to this film that it's very hard to explain, and I don't want to give any of that away either. But I am honored that I had the opportunity to have you at the film festival. You actually flew in. We unfortunately had a really nice day in Colorado that day, and we didn't have as many people show up in the actual theater, but we had a pretty big crowd on virtual, which is great. So that's why it's good to do the hybrid. And
we will start selling tickets for the Mental Health Warrior Film Festival on March 1st after we have selected the films on February 28th.
Amazing. So check that out too. And you can go to that film festival. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
Of course, my pleasure. And we'll keep in contact because this is not the end. So thank you for being an amazing guest. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you for doing all the work that you're doing. I'm glad our paths have crossed.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. That was another amazing episode of the Make Mental Health Matter show. I am just so, again, I just feel very honored that one of my friends randomly was like, by the way, you should do a film festival. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but we're going to figure it out. And it has been one of the coolest things that we do with the nonprofit is being able to showcase these pieces of art. They really, truly, it's so creative. And all of the films that we have in the film festival are shorts. They're short independent films. They range anywhere between 4 minutes, I think, is the shortest that we've had, up to 45 minutes. It's got to be really good if we go to the extended time, but we generally showcase anywhere between 9 to 12 films, depending on how they fit in that time frame. It can be a lot, right? Like watching these films in one day can feel like a lot. That's what we're kind of playing with, the energy of what we want to do as we're bringing up the film festival for 2025 and how we want to really shift into the space of talking about these important conversations that Max and I just had. Want you to know also, if you are somebody who is struggling, you are not alone. There are lots of resources out there, and really put yourself out there. I love what Max is doing, and he just keeps going, and he's finding these creative avenues to really showcase his story, right? So whatever you do, make sure that you come back next week. I will pop up really, really quickly. If you do need any other resources, you can go to makementalhealthmatter.org. Go to our resource space. There is information for actual people, places. There are free resources. There are also ways to talk to people, to have these open conversations, and what to do after, if the unfortunate thing happens that somebody does die by suicide. What can you do after that? So lots of great resources on the website. And as with this show, we have really great resources here that they give you any tips and tools that you might be able to utilize if you are somebody that's struggling, or you have somebody in your life that is struggling. So make sure you come back. Exciting news happening into the future. We're going to do some in-person episodes, which I'm very excited. I'm going to start recording those towards the, I don't even know, it'll pop up when you happen to see the in-person shows. So make sure you join back. I go live every single Monday, whether you are listening on Dream Vision 7 Radio at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m. Mountain Time, or you're watching on E360 TV, which is 5 p.m. on Mondays. No matter what, I will see ya next week. Bye, y'all.